بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والرسل. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. You make me feel old, you know. Takes me back over 35 years since I was when I was an undergrad. So it's a long time ago. Subhanallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the strength, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the wisdom. It's very important. You are the future of this world. And without you, we're nothing. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes that connection between us and you, to at least that we can serve you, so that you remember us. Because when we pass away, there's only the knowledge that we've given you that helps us when we are in our graves. That's all. So inshallah. Like Ramadan as a month, as a ibadah, a worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, touches every aspect of our life in terms of our aqidah, our belief, in terms of the actions, the ibadat and the ahkam. It is also, if you think of not only of the month of Ramadan, but the actual conduct of fasting, siyam. Siyam is also given in Sharia as a method for absolving us or repenting from, if you have done sworn by Allah and you lied, or that you have also in some circumstances where someone kills a Muslim, of course not intentionally. Intentionally is Jahannam, but non-intentionally there are steps. The third one of which is to fast 60 days. There's another one also for those, you're not all married yet, but if you get married, but don't do this. There is a situation whereby a man might actually say that to his wife that you are like the back of my mother. That means this is something they used to do in Jahiliyyah, and there is Surah Al-Mujadila is the first 4 ayat is about this, and part of which is to fast as a way to repent from having said this. So fasting and Ramadan is part of us and part of what we do. There is a gate in Jannah, Bab al-Rayyan, and it is for those who fast. So fasting is so integrated, and Ramadan is so integrated into us and who we are, and as our individual and clear personality. Now, when I say personality, a lot of people think, personality, what personality is, your characters, you have to think very clearly about that. What we call personality in Islam, from a Sharia perspective, we call it a shakhsiyya. So a shakhsiyya is both a mentality, so the way you think, the way you view life, the way you make decisions, and it's also how you manage your own intrinsic characteristics and needs and desires that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in us. So how we eat, how we earn our money, how we satisfy our biological needs, all of those aspects all come as part of shakhsiyya. The combination of the two is what creates a Muslim shakhsiyya and a Muslim personality. And that is why Ramadan is so important, because Ramadan, as you fast and as you practice that fasting and you apply all of the things that Rasulullah had said, your shakhsiyya is molded, because you're fasting from a viewpoint that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you to fast. And then you manage all your needs. You're hungry, you're thirsty. If you're married, inshallah you have a beautiful wife. You can't touch her during the day, right? So all of these things becomes then your needs. You manage those by the personality that you carry. And that in the combination of those two. And this is how the Sahaba built up, and how the Sahaba then, when they entered this and they started, and then they developed, and then the Rasulullah ﷺ throughout in Dar al-Arqam in Mecca, and also then in Medina later after Hijrah, he developed them. And he kept on reminding them and building that shakhsiyah to the level where they were actually competing with each other. They were in competition. There is the narration of that Uthman radiallahu anhu came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he gave him some money for. And he says, what is this? This is 1/3 of what I have. Uthman. Umar came and he gave him half. And then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came and he gave him everything. He says, what did you leave to your family? He says, Allah and His Messenger. They believed. What does that mean? That means they understand what rizq is. They understand that it's not the money. We are just custodians of this money. We are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, shuhada'a ala nas, that we will be the witnesses before everybody. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, in the day of judgment, my ummah and I will be above a mountain, overseeing all of the nations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us part of the with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that mountain, witnessing all of mankind happy, inshallah, with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us. So Ramadan, of course, maybe the first thing that comes to mind is how come we can't fast on the same day? Why every country has its own Ramadan? Why everyone is calling for their own day of Eid? Why? That's one aspect of it. One aspect of it, of course, is that we also have no custodian of our own on earth. 100 years ago, that was the end of the Uthmani Khilafah, and that was it. Since then, we've been dissected and broken. We've got 57 countries. They want to give us number 58. They're talking about the two-state solution in Palestine. They want to give us number 58 so we can have 58 flags now and be happy with that. That's not really a solution. Ramadan, and until such time that we have, before that, when the Sultan would actually say it is Ramadan, that's it, everybody fasted. Now, there are so many political aspects to it, so many flags. You find, sometimes I found really, really peculiar. You'll find neighboring countries. Sometimes, like for example, there's some brothers from Yemen, I'm from Yemen, you find that, for example, a city like Jizan in the south of Saudi Arabia will fast Ramadan, but Yemen won't fast. It's just across the border. It's only about 50 kilometers away, the border. Even Najran, which is even closer, you can see the border. They'll fast 2 different days. You'll find Tabuk, northern Saudi Arabia, they'll fast, but Jordan will not. And like that. You will find that Egypt will fast, but Libya will say, no, we won't. Or Malaysia will, and everybody else won't. Or, and everybody wants their own crescent. That is, of course, against the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who says, "Sumu liru'yatih waftiru liru'yatih." Fast for sighting. And this is a very, very important principle in Sharia. We do not fast because of calculation. We do not fast because of some what do you call it? There is a method for filming. It's called enhanced visual, and they basically can see the moon. Very, very high-end cameras. They can see it within 6 seconds, or I think the best they did was 1 hour and 16 minutes to actually see the moon after it's born. None of that applies. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi. That means we have to sight it. Of course, we can sight with the binoculars, but it has to be a human eye that does that. Now, that is very, very important. And it's very important to understand that when we say صوموا لرؤيته, صوموا in the plural. That means all of you, Hadith Rasulullah to all the Ummah, didn't mean an individual, didn't mean anybody else. So صوموا لرؤيته, صوموا in the plural, meaning the whole of the Ummah should fast upon sighting the crescent. So if they don't see it in what's the furthest? Indonesia first, and then Malaysia, and then coming all the way across, all the way across the Gulf, but they sight it in Mali or Senegal or Ivory Coast. I will fast. I do that, and my whole family knows. whoever a Muslim cites it. Sometimes we have our cousins in San Francisco, they'll call us and they say, yes, they've been cited. And we will fast. Why? Because صوموا لرؤيته. One Muslim is enough as long as they can give the testimony that they have actually cited it, they do. And there are many incidents during the days of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam when people either for Siyam or for Eid al-Fitr, where people from outside Medina came and they say, Ya Rasulullah, we saw it. The only question Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked is, Atashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasul? And he said, yes. He says, Ya Bilal, adhin fin nas. Bilal, call the people. One time it was for fasting, and the other one, by the time the person had arrived was already morning. So he said to them to fast and then to make up the day. And the other one was he came to them for at night, the next day, to tell them that also it was the Eid al-Fitr, that they had seen the hilal, the crescent of Shawwal. You see, us as Muslims, we have a choice. And that choice is made of two options. And those two options, and there isn't a third. Either we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who created us, and there is no way to obtain the Ridwan, because we all want Ridwan. Ridwan is acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with us. And this life is a life of tests, of work for what? Only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for Jannah. That's all what we seek. That is where our eternal life is going to be. On this earth doesn't mean that we all become monks, huh? No. Sahaba, some of them were extremely wealthy. Extremely wealthy. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to arm the army of Al-Usra to go to Tabuk, Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, he gave 940 camels and 60 horses. He gave 1,000 dinar in gold. You know how much 1,000 dinar in gold is? Every dinar is 4 grams 25 of gold. So you're talking about he gave 4,000 in terms of, so he gave 4 kilos of gold. In today's money is about £1 million, right? So imagine how much that was in those days. A lot of money. So they gave. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf, extremely wealthy. But they only wanted one thing. Let me give you 2 examples. One from Uthman, one from Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was exceptionally wealthy. Uthman ibn Affan, during the Imara of Amir al-Mu'mineen Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, there was a huge drought. And there was hunger. And he had a caravan of his trade coming from Asham, coming back to Medina. And people had complained to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said to them, radiallahu anhu wa ardah, said, inshallah by tonight we will resolve the problem. So that night that caravan came. And the traders, they went and knocked on Uthman's house. And they said, we heard you received this caravan with food and the people are hungry. We want to buy from you so we can sell it to the people. And he says, welcome, come in. So they came in and they saw, imagine this whole place, they're all full of food. And they said, we will give you 20%. Whatever you paid, we'll give you 20% profit now. He says, I got more. He says, we're the only traders. He says, Al-Hasanu bi'asharati amthaliha. Hasana, 10 times with Allah. This is all for Allah and His Messenger. He gave it all away. This is how they were. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions them in the Quran. He says, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. They prefer others rather than themselves. This is who they were. And this is who we should be. We share. we work together, we help each other, we support each other, we are there for each other. This is what makes us as unique personalities. This is why everybody else outside that you see them when they got problems, they're on their own, they're into suicide, they're into drugs, they're into alcohol, they haven't got that support. We have this support network. It doesn't really matter who we are, young. Huh? To all of us, we're all brothers. And the other one is about Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Abdurrahman ibn Auf, it is narrated that after Rasulullah had passed away, during the hukum of Abu Bakr also, that al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha, she heard a lot of noise, and she said, "What is this noise? Ma hadihi al-jalaba?" So, what is this noise? They said it is a caravan belonging to Abdurrahman ibn Auf, 1,000 camels. 1,000 camels in those days, like 1,000 containers nowadays. This is one of these big, mega, huge ships that you see with 1,000 containers on it, 40-foot containers. That's what it was like in those days. And she said, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول لا يدخلن عبد الرحمن بن عوف الجنة حبوا. Habwan means he would go into Jannah crawling. And as they loved each other, they took the news to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. They went to يا عبد الرحمن سمعت أم المؤمنين تقول عنك كذا. Heard المؤمنين say this about you. He ran back to المؤمنين. Says أقالها رسول الله. He was checking. Rasulullah said. She said yes. So now you imagine, Rasulullah, there's a hadith. Rasulullah says he's one of the 10 who will enter Jannah. What do you imagine he did? He said to them, he says, Wallahi la adkhulannaha mashiyan. He says, by Allah, I will not crawl into Jannah, I will walk into Jannah. These 1,000 camels is all for Allah and His Messenger. He's guaranteed Jannah. But he wants more. This is what فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. This is how we compete. That is how the Sahaba competed with each other to be better, to be higher, to be... And they also loved each other and gave to each other. Umar ibn Khattab came complaining to Rasulullah about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He says, I always, he greet him, but he never greets me with Salaam alaikum. So Abu Bakr, Rasulullah called Abu Bakr, Umar يشكوك. He said, إنه دائما يبادرك السلام وأنت لا تبادر. He says, I wanted him to get the reward. أفشوا السلام. حديث الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. The 3 aspects. أفشوا السلام. You remember? Or you don't know? أفشوا السلام, which is to greet people and say السلام عليكم. أطعموا الطعام, feed others. وصلوا والناس نيام, pray while people are asleep. تدخلون الجنة بسلام. You enter Jannah with the peace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is how they competed. This is how we make our personalities better and stronger. By the way, I'm not going to cover all of Ramadan today. So I promised Uthman that what I'll do is I'll do this over several weeks. So every Thursday we'll do a little bit more and I'll extend. But let's say that we have to remember. So the basic tenets that I want you to remember is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have one of 2 choices. Either we obey and submit, because that's what Islam means. Islam comes from the word aslama. Aslama istaslam. That means I submit and I subjugate myself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and no one else. So one of the key things is to remember that obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the Creator, and that there is no way to actually obtain that acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala other than to obey Him and to stop at His orders and His prohibitions. That is how we do. So we call it in الالتزام بالأوامر والانتهاء بالنواهي. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this very, very clear. He says, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Today, I have, it's very difficult to actually can sometimes translate literally from English to Arabic, but let's say perfected, because it's complete, it's done, perfected for you your deen and completed my favor upon you and approved Islam as your deen. So a lot of people translate deen as a religion. That's wrong. Deen is not religion. Because the Arabic word ad-deen, if you go to the Arabic dictionaries, you will find that ad-deen, I was just trying to recall the page. It was about 3 pages trying to explain what does ad-deen mean. So ad-deen is ma yadinu bihi al-mar'a, is what a person submits to. ما يدين به المرء وينظم به أمور حياته, and organizes his life by. So that's why it cannot just be a pure religion. It's not a spiritual thing. A lot of people, by saying that it is just a pure religion, that means you can mix it with Christianity and Judaism and other religions, which do not have the تنظيم أمور الحياة, which is the managing of the daily affairs in them. Islam as a deen is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, هو الذي في السماء إله, He is who is the God in the sky, وفي الأرض إله, and He is also the God on this earth. This is what's very, very important to remember. This is what is about Tawheed al-Uluhiyya and Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and those aspects. So those are very, very important things that we have to understand. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الرسول بلغ ما أنزل إليك من ربك وإن لم تفعل فما بلغت رسالته. Ordering Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to convey whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to him. And if you do not do this, you will not have conveyed the message. And we have to be very, very important, and recognize that we cannot disobey Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We cannot disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, part of obeying Allah and His Messenger is to actually study this deen and to understand where it is. A lot of people sometimes kind of get scared about, you're going to tie me. I can't attend this. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. Success comes from us. It comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Money, rizq, wealth, provision comes from us. It comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the more we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we understand how we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how to accept this and how to submit us to ourselves, this is how we build this personality and the strength and the purity of what we do. Okay, now, part of all of this, why I made all this long introduction, is for a very simple fact, is that then shows us that there is no way that there is anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left behind or unanswered or unknown or ambiguous or not clear in our deen. And certainly He has not left Ramadan unclear or ambiguous or unknown. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has demonstrated to us through the revelation. A lot of people remember also the revelation is not just the Quran, the revelation is also the hadith. Hadith is revelation. It is the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first thing is, it is He who has made the sun a shining light and the moon a derived light and determined for it phases that you may know the number of years and account of time. This is already Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demonstrating to us that the Qamar, Shams wal Qamar, this is what we need to understand them, and how that the Qamar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it phases. قدرناه منازل, and each one it's got 29 to 30 phases. So and that's how it goes through. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض, and that the number of months with Allah is 12 months by Allah's ordinance in the day that He created the heavens and the earth. 4 of them are sacred. Do you know the sacred months? الأشهر الحرم. You know them? No? No. Rajab. No. Rajab is the one that a lot of people don't remember. You got Muharram for sure. Ramadan and ذو الحجة 3 والرابع مزبوط. طيب. There's also where am I? Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this day I have perfected for your deen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and we revealed to you the message that you may make clear to the people what was sent down to them, and that they might give thought, to think. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam demonstrated to all of the Sahaba, demonstrated to us, because the Sahaba carried this deen forward to us, our deen, the totality of this deen, the ahkam, the sources, so that we have the hukum shari, and gave us the ahkam for fasting and for citing the crescent, and for ending the fasting, so for fitr, which is seeing the crescent of Shawwal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not ask us to calculate. If we were to use calculation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have said, we wouldn't have left it open. Now, a lot of people say that, but this is science, we are modern, we can actually do it 100%. Yeah? Almost 100%. The fact is, the Sharia ruling is, yes, you can use the calculation to kind of say, okay, it's going to be in 10 days' time, so you get ready for 10 days' time, but you still have to cite it, because the hadith is very clear. صوموا لرؤيته. And that citing is critical. And for us to understand this and comprehend this Sharia request and this requirement, we have to then understand the linguistic perspectives of the word somu and the word ru'ya. So somu to fast, ru'ya to sight. And so the hilal and the crescent and the ru'ya, the sighting, that's what we need to do. Shahr is the month. And so Ibn Faris, who is one of the greatest Arabic scholars, and he has a Mu'jam al-Lugha, dictionary of language. He says, clarity in matter and enlightenment of this month, and in the speech of the Arabs, Al-Hilal then named every 30 days by the name of Al-Hilal, and said it was Shahr, month. So this is how they used to say it. So they know the Hilal, they know what it means to have a moon for the month, and the word month means وضوح في الأمر وإضاءة. Sorry, the Hilal is وضوح في الأمر وإضاءة. So when you see why they were describing the crescent moon is that it is a light for the month because it lights up the month. It starts the month. So, and and the Arabs would call it hilal. That is what they knew it as, even before Islam. They always knew it as hilal. And then he continued on to say, and then they called it by 30 days, 29, 30 days, 28, 29, 20, depends on the cycle, because the lunar calendar is 354 days rather than the 364 and a half or whatever they call the solar calendar. And Ibn Taymiyyah said in his Majmu' al-Fatawa, he says, Al-Hilal is taken from appearance and raising of voices. Why raising of voices? People in Yemen know very well. Because when we go out, as soon as we know the Hilal has been sighted, they go out with the drums. They go out with with tasbih, with tahleel, with takbir, in the streets. So it's known by the voices. So you hear the voices, you know this is the beginning of the month. So Ibn Taymiyyah is reminding of that. And he said that it is derived from the actions we witness al-hilal. And that is أهللنا الهلال. They used to say, ask someone, يقول أهللت الهلال. I have seen it, I have sighted it. And that is, when you see all the little lanterns and taking them out, this is all part of a tradition of welcoming the month. And when they say that we have begun the month, then it will become not أهللنا, but استهللنا, from إفعال. So what we have then to think scientifically these days, we have lots of big pictures and all of these telescopes, and well, they say they landed on the moon. I think it was a warehouse, though. Anyway, it's a different story. But so we can see already the crescent, how the crescent moves, and we know, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says manazil. And they now know that there are actually specific manazil, that is, so like homes for the crescent throughout the month as it goes round until it comes in front of the sun and basically and moves on. So so what we call the wax, what they call the waxing crescent. So this is the early crescent, because when al-hilal disappears on the sometime around the 27th, 28th, the hilal will disappear, and you won't see it. Do you know the physics of this? Yes, come on. This is big campus. This is the engineering hometown. No? Time. Okay, I'll do a session on that. I'll do that next time. It's a long one. But let's just say that you have the waxing crescent, which is the very young crescent. On the 28th day, the hilal will disappear. And then, from a Sharia perspective, the whole month is all of the days. But some of the modernists or modern these days, they try to claim this waxing crescent is that the crescent is being born. But that's not actually accurate, because the hilal is actually completing its journey, but it's being obscured by the sun. That's what actually happens. And then as it moves from the shadow of the sun, you could then start seeing the little hilal being born. And the only time, and then because light takes such a long time to travel to us, it does take a few hours. So we can't really see it by eye. The best, I think, the earliest they've actually seen it is sometime between the 12th hour and the 14th hour of its birth, even with binoculars or even a good telescope. Any earlier than that, it's very difficult to see unless they use that image enhancing technology that increases the light so that you could actually see it. But that's not sighting. that's magnifying light to actually be able to kind of see clearly. So it is called the hilal for the first 2 nights. And then after that, it starts going into different names. And there is a name for it in Arabic for each one. We can do that next time. It's not the time now. So now let's come to the word ru'ya, why it's important. So ru'ya is actually one of probably the few aspects that all of the schools of thought agree on. So all of the madahib agree on ru'ya. That's unique because they even when you put your hands in salah, they here below the surah, they will differ. Which is everybody has a hukum, everybody has evidence. Don't knock them down. The madahib are great imams. They have their tools, they have their methods, and they have their evidences that they follow. But ru'ya is one of the few things that they totally agree on, of the 4 schools. And that it should be after sunset and not the daytime sighting, which is not affected amongst the majority of the ulama. Okay, so the consensus of the ulama is the day sighting is no. Now, sometimes you might see, sometimes it's very possible that the hilal is actually born over certain areas where we can't see it, over the Pacific. Yeah, it's a huge ocean. It depends really on the timing. And then you wake up the next morning and you could see the remnants of the hilal. Oops, no, that's a day sighting. We don't. Now, ru'ya also, by consensus, does not require an assembly of people and a group of people to sight it. Okay, although these days they actually go out and have you seen how they do the sighting? Have you seen some of the videos from Saudi and from in Sudan and okay. So it's a big event. They go there, they sit there, all of them, and they're all trying to sight it. But that's not a requirement. Because Rasulullah ﷺ, by stating witness it, means the absolute witnessing, and his statement fast and end your fast is general, including all people on this earth. There being neither difference between one country and another, nor between one Muslim and another Muslim. Okay. So the Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا تصوموا حتى تروا الهلال. Do not fast until you sight the moon. I don't know if you remember 3 years ago when the Taliban decided to say that they sighted the moon. And we debunked that. There's no way they could have actually sighted the moon because 24 hours later there was an eclipse. They could not have. That was not the moon. That was the moon of the previous one. It was moon of Shaban, the last day of Shaban, which they cited. But anyway, so وَلَا تَفْطُرُوا حَتَّى تَرَوْا, and do not have Eid al-Fitr until you also sight it again. فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ. If you are, غمامة, meaning غمامة means that you've been obscured, because of clouds, etc., and you can't see it, then أقدروا له. And in another hadith, it says the qadr is 30. فَأَكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ 30. And this is very important aspect. we do not take one hadith and say, oh, that's the hadith and that's it. No. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has hadith for a very specific question. So we, to understand the hukum shari, we have to understand all of the hadith and understand which one was before the other, which one is actually specifies the other one, which one is the general hadith, which one is the specific hadith for that matter, etc. Yeah. So we have to remember that. Al-am wal-khas, all kinds of things in fiqh. And also he said, الشهر 29 ليلة. That the month is 29 days. فلا تصوموا حتى تروه فإن غم عليكم فاكملوا العدة 30. And if it's obscured for you, then complete 30 days. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, إذا رأيتموه فافطروا فإن غم عليكم فاقدروا له. So I'm giving you all the hadith. They all mean the same thing. It's either 29 or 30 days. If you can't see it, then you complete the 30th. And that actually means that 30 days is the maximum. فاقدروا له 30. You put a limit. 29 is the month. 30 is the maximum. After that, even if you don't see it, it's it. Because he made an order. And this is a very interesting aspect, where the citing of al-fitr is abrogated by the fact that you have actually 29 and then 30 days. The same thing also for Sha'ban. If we had cited the beginning of Sha'ban, and we know exactly the first day of Sha'ban was on this day, then Sha'ban cannot be more than 30 days. And if it's obscured, we will complete 30 days and then it's Ramadan straight after. So this is very important to understand that it's 29 and a maximum of 30. The condition here, okay, which is very important, is there is no condition of the actual birth of the moon. So all of these calculations only talk about the birth of the moon. But we don't do the birth of the moon. We do the sighting of the moon. Okay, so the conditions in this hadith and these orders. And the reason for that is that although we can use these tools to help us and to guide us and to aid us, the Sharia condition has actually said no. Rasulullah said, "Inna ummatun ummiya." We are a nation of illiterate people. Yeah. لا نكتب ولا نحسب. We don't write and we don't calculate. هكذا وهكذا, meaning 29 and 30. Sometimes it's 29, sometimes it's 30. So this is also, in a way, not saying that we should be illiterate, but it's also saying that we do not calculate for the sighting. But we know it is 29 or 30. Now, the calculation, of course, is what is interested about is that it is about the orbit of the moon around Earth, and of course about the Earth and the moon around the sun. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Sumu li-ru'yatihi waftaru li-ru'yatihi." Then it is the ru'ya of some of the Muslims. Therefore, there's no conditionality on that. And Ibn Umar says that we went out. Rasulullah ordered us to go out and sight the moon. فتراءى الناس الهلال فأخبرت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أني رأيته فصامه وأمر الناس بصيامه. That Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم ordered us to go and sight. We all went out to sight. I sighted it, and I told Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he ordered everybody. He was single. Okay. Ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas رضي الله عنه عنهما أن أعرابي جاء إلى الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أبصرت الهلال الليلة. A Bedouin, Arabi, came to Rasul صلى الله عليه وسلم and says أبصرت الهلال. I saw the hilal tonight. He asked him only one question. أتشهد أن لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله؟ قال نعم. فقال قم يا بلال فأذن في الناس أن يصوموا غدا. Call to the people to fast tomorrow. One person. Okay. So therefore, the key thing here is for us to understand that hukum. And I wanted to mention that this is kind of like the tenant, because that's what enters us into Ramadan. What I want to do, it depends on you. I don't want to keep you here for too long. I'll open it to questions. You might ask me all kinds of questions, which I might cover next time or thereafter. I would only just say to you that it is very, very important for our unity, for the sake of this ummah, is that we fast together. Don't let them, all these flags that Rasulullah ﷺ ordered us to remove and to ignore and to let go of. Rasulullah ﷺ said, very, very specific word. He says, "Itrukuha innaha muntina." Leave it. It stinks. Yeah? This Arab qawmiya and wataniya, nationalism and tribalism and borders. I mean, who put the borders? There's a very famous person called Sir Arthur Percy Cox, the British ambassador to the Middle East. He used to go around with a pencil on. He used to have a small pencil on his ear there, and he used to draw the boundaries. Okay, this is your country. This is your country. And we could see now. Look at Africa and what's going on in Africa. All the problems. The deaths, the killing, the genocide in Africa that's going on. I mean, imagine that huge, beautiful kingdom of Congo. It is a magnificent country. But Belgium wanted it. How are they going to get it? Divide it, cut it up. And what they did in there was atrocious. The Germans, the French, the Brits, what the Americans did in two parts, the enslavement of the people of Africa, of which millions died, millions upon millions died. They used to throw them overboard into the sea. Even if they get sick, so no, you're going to make everybody else sick, throw them off. And all of the, shouldn't really use their words, but let's say the people of, and there was apparently in one of the books it was written there was 100 million indigenous people of North America. How many are left? Few million now? What they call Red Indians? Australia, the Aborigines. How many are left? If they're not drunk or diseased, and that's what happens. That's what they do. So, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, jazakumullah khair, barakallah feekum. That's what I wanted to cover this time. And I will go into other aspects of Ramadan. There is so much. There is, every day of Ramadan has a link to something specific. If I give you a flavor, for example, the third day of Ramadan was when Rasulullah ﷺ went out of Medina for Badr. Fath Makkah was in Ramadan. The destruction of all of the idols of Quraysh was on the 27th, 28th, and 29th of Ramadan. So much about Ramadan that we need to understand and recognize. So I leave it to you. Ask. You have to ask. Ask anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's something we can all do to kind of like prepare for Ramadan?
Yeah.
Okay. Habit,
so part of the habits is Ramadan as a month teaches us a lot. But to prepare ourselves to get into Ramadan, there are a number of things. Don't enter Ramadan while you have anything in your heart against anyone. Yeah? Make sure that you enter Ramadan clean. Make sure that you enter Ramadan with the intention of seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's acceptance and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. Prepare yourself for Ramadan in terms of fasting Mondays and Tuesdays and things like that before, to kind of get yourself ready for, in that spiritual moment. And remember also, to get into Ramadan, you have to start to hold yourself accountable yourself. Watch your tongues. There's nothing good about fasting from food and water, and your tongue is spitting on this and screaming on this and insulting this, and what, you fasting from food and water that is not fasting. So preparing also for Ramadan includes also, with the brothers getting together, making some activities, ensuring that you have certain aspects of how you want to plan this month. The last 10, of course, everybody wants to do maximum the last 10, but it doesn't mean that the first 20 is wasted. And try not to be the ones that actually sleep all day and kind of wake up just before iftar, miss dhuhr and miss asr, and it is very much a month that will test your bodies, will test your mind, will test your personality. So be ready from now. And I would also say what is very important is to prepare for leaving Ramadan, which is how do you then continue, so that we don't just worship the month. Yeah? So a lot of people worship the month of Ramadan. And I mean by worshiping the month of Ramadan is that they spend the whole of Ramadan trying to be as close as possible to being the Muslim that they should be. And then they leave Ramadan and that's it. Khalas, the minute, as soon as Eid is done, Salat al-Eid is done, that's it. No, can't be like that.
Thank you very much.
تفضل.
See, we say if the first sighting is 1 day before, say like UK fast, right? Would the Eid will be 1 day before the Mazal? So,
Yeah, it could be.
so
yeah.
how would we?
Well, it's look, mostly here in this country, they're trying to do a rule here to what they call it UK sighting, okay, which is practically impossible, given where the UK is so far north. It's very difficult for them to be able to sight them. Plus, also, they're basically trying to bring in calculation as the only solution. There is a committee, and I actually looked on their website and stuff. I think some of the things that they're claiming is evidence is not evidence. I debunked one of their references. I went to the page, I went to the book, it doesn't say that. But anyway, that's a different story. But most people here in this country still will follow, to the majority, will still follow the sighting in Saudi Arabia. Now, over the last few years, Saudi has been correct when they've seen it. A couple of occasions they didn't see it. And as I mentioned to you, I fasted with Senegal, because Ivory Coast, Senegal, Mali, all cited it. To me, they're Muslims, and I cited and I fasted with them. Now, when it comes to if you fast, let's say you fast with Saudi, but of course here they say, but who's going to say? The Swansea Mosque is most probably, I know for a fact they fast with Saudi, so they'll see it there. I think the only occasion would be is if Saudi don't see it and Senegal see it, then we can have our own Eid Salah. But the key thing is, we fast with the sighting and we pray fast with the sighting. Once we get to know that we have to apply the Hukum Shara'i and we pass that information to others and convince others with that, it will change. Because that means a lot. Means adhering to Hukum Shara'i is not just about sighting the moon. It is also about all kinds of decisions you will have to face in your life going forward. When you become, when you get your, either having your own businesses or becoming part of organizations and leading people and etc., there will be situations where your unique characteristic as a Muslim and how you adhere to rules, you are in that moment, at that moment, you are an emissary of Islam. Okay.
how to maximize the risk that we can get in Ramadan, inshallah.
Ramadan, in terms of rizq in Ramadan, of course, you're talking about rizq. You mean in terms of provision, in terms of money, in terms of or rizq in terms, or you mean in terms of hasanat?
In terms of
Hasanat. Okay. To maximize it, of course, the things I mentioned in answering to Uthman earlier on, but also on top of it, Qira'at al-Quran, understanding hadith, also doing good deeds, hasanat, sadaqat, even clean the mosque, those kind of things. Sometimes we think things are very trivial or small. It'am, bringing iftar, even if it is with one date, it's iftar. And also by salah from Taraweeh, increasing the number of nafila you do. The nafila, okay, we know that, for example, for salah, we got 10, the 10 rak'ahs of sunnah, the 2 before fajr, 2 before and after dhuhr, etc. Those are 10. But there's nafila, we could do more. Okay? And qiyam, also, other aspects of hasanat that you can gain is by helping people. Maybe here everybody is okay, you've got food, help people somewhere else. In other places where they don't have food, they don't have the money, but they don't have the ability to provide from themselves. So always, if this place, which is the closest one to where you live, is sufficient, then look outside where it's not sufficient to help them. So the doors are open for hasanat and istighfar, tasbih, qira'at Quran, and all of those, everything adds hasanat. Okay. So what we'll continue on doing, I'm going to do next week is start delving into more of the details of Ramadan, on specific things and events that have occurred, what has happened, what will happen, and all of those aspects, inshallah. Yeah, go.
I have a question.
Yes.
How can we cover our eyes during the month of Ramadan? You know the country.
Yeah, we know the country. You're lucky it's not summer. What I would say is Allah Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Wudu asalakum." So when we walk, you walk and you look on the pavement, and that is how we do it. Now we are allowed and permitted in Islam to look, okay, but that look cannot be a look of shahwa, a look of desire. And I'll tell you what, and the evidence for this is very clear, because Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was standing in Medina, speaking to one of very beautiful woman, and she was a Muslim, but she was also a trader and a businesswoman. And with him was some of the Sahaba. With him was his nephew, Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah ibn Abbas was very young at that time, he was about 14. So while they were talking, Rasulullah took Abdullah ibn Abbas' head and he turned it. Why? As a young man, he was looking at this woman with desire. Hormones, okay? So, and this is what Allah, this is for us, from this incident, this is evidence for us that we should not look at people with desire. And that is very important. And therefore, yes, you can walk, you can look, you're always passing by, but at the minute, of course, the shaitan is always whispering, is always trying to affect us, is always, he will not stop. And actually, the ones who are already gone, he doesn't care about them. He's done his job. He wants to affect us, and will always try to, sometimes you're walking, you don't know what's going on. Then all of a sudden you look, you're like, why did I look? Yeah, Shaitan. So one of the ways that I do is while I'm walking, I'm always doing tasbih. I'm always trying to recite Quran. That just keeps yourself always protected. Do your adhkar in the morning. Do your, the adhkar of the first thing in the morning. When you leave, Bismillah, tawakkaltu Allah, amantu billah, aslamtu billah. Make all of those adhkar to protect you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, will guide us and help us with Allah ta'ala. But it is a continuous effort and struggle. And the more you struggle with it, actually, the more hasanat you get. Yeah? Any more? Please. ولا خلاص عشاء؟ بعد شوي هذا باقي شوي. The Ummah always receives Ramadan with happiness. But this Ramadan, it was also last Ramadan, the Ramadan before. The Ummah, of course, has over the years, especially over the last 2 decades, has suffered immensely. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He may protect this Ummah, and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aid and support us in understanding what is it truly we need to achieve and do. بإذن الله الواحد الأحد. اللهم نسألك يا رحمن يا رحيم يا لطيف يا خبير يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر إخواننا في كل مكان يا رب العالمين. اللهم تقبل شهداءنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك. ارحم ضعفنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك. كن معنا لا علينا يا رب العالمين. اللهم كن لنا وليا ونصيرا يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا رب ارحم أراملنا يا رب العالمين، وارحم أيتامنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا لطيف يا خبير يا رب العالمين، انصر إخواننا يا رب العالمين فيما تحبه وترضى. اللهم لا إله إلا أنت نسألك يا رحمن يا رحيم يا لطيف يا خبير. اللهم أن تنصرنا على من عادانا. اللهم انصرنا على من عادانا. اللهم انصرنا على من عادانا. اللهم رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.